If you talk to anyone who's trying to become a CPA, a certified public accountant, you'll probably hear them mention one word, almost in a whisper, with this mix of fear and respect, FAR. It stands for Financial Accounting and Reporting. Now, it's just one part of a four-part exam, but for what feels like forever, it's been the ultimate challenge for anyone wanting to become a CPA. So, what's the deal? What makes this one section so incredibly tough? All right, let's get into it. The numbers, well, they speak for themselves. Just look at the 2024 pass rates. You've got the Reg section, that's taxation and regulation. Over 62% of people pass that. Then there's TCP, tax compliance and planning, almost 74%. And then you've got FAR, all the way down at the bottom with a pass rate of less than 40%. It's not just a bit harder, it's on a whole other level of difficult. And this isn't new. It's always been this way. The real question is, why? To really wrap your head around FAR's reputation, you have to stop thinking of it as just an exam. It's more like an expedition. Yeah, it's the Mount Everest of the CPA world. A huge, daunting challenge known for its incredible scale and complexity. And this feeling, it's captured perfectly by this user on the CPA subreddit. Apologies for the manifesto. Think about that. This isn't just studying. It's like you have to write a whole manifesto. The amount of information is so insane that people feel like they need to do a complete brain dump just to hope they haven't forgotten some tiny critical rule. It's a classic case of information overload. So to actually understand this beast, we can't just go off of feelings and scary stories. We need a map. And the best, most official map out there is the blueprint from the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. This document lays out exactly what this test is all about. The blueprint breaks FAR down into three main buckets. First, you've got financial reporting. That's the big picture stuff. Then, select balance sheet accounts. We're talking cash, inventory, all that fun stuff. And finally, select transactions, which covers everything from how you recognize revenue to income taxes. What you notice right away is that no single piece of the pie is small. You have to be an expert across the board. The sheer breadth of knowledge is just massive. But here's the real kicker. This is what truly separates FAR from your typical college final. It is not about memorization. The skills they test tell the real story. Remembering and understanding? That's just a tiny sliver of the test. The vast, vast majority of your score comes from application and analysis. So you can't just know the rules. You have to apply these really complex principles to situations you've never seen before and analyze financial data to figure out the right path. This is exactly where things get so tricky for so many people. So if it's all about application and analysis, what exactly are you applying? Well, deep down, accounting is the language of business. It really is. Financial statements, they tell a story about how a company is doing. FAR is basically a test of how well you know the grammar of that language, the rules that make sure everyone is telling their financial story in the same way. For example, recognizing revenue. It sounds simple, right? A customer pays you, you recognize the revenue. Not so fast. It's a formal 5-step process. You have to identify the contract, figure out the performance obligations, determine the price, allocate that price, and only then can you recognize the revenue. You have to know these steps inside and out and be ready to apply them to any crazy scenario the exam might cook up. And just like in language, different grammatical structures can tell very different stories. A single-step income statement, for instance, gets you to the bottom line, the net income, really fast. But a multi-step version? Oh, that gives you a much richer story by breaking out operating activities from non-operating ones. FAR expects you to be totally fluent in all of these formats. Now, just when you think you've got the grammar down, here comes a massive plot twist that just throws another huge layer of difficulty into the mix. The language of business, it isn't universal. There are actually two competing dialects, US GAAP, which is used in the States, and IFRS, which is used by most of the rest of the world. And yep, you guessed it, FAR tests you on both. So on one hand, you have US Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, or GAAP. It's this incredibly comprehensive, rules-based system built for American companies. And on the other hand, you have International Financial Reporting Standards, or IFRS,
which is more of a principles-based framework that's used in over 140 countries. And we're not talking about small details here. The differences are major. Under GAAP, if you write down an asset because its value has been impaired, you can't ever reverse that loss. But under IFRS, you might actually be required to reverse it later. Or take R&D costs. GAAP says expense almost all of it right away. IFRS lets you capitalize development costs. And the LIFO inventory method? Totally fine in the US, but completely forbidden under IFRS. You've got to know all of these twists and turns. So what this all really means is that a modern accountant working at a big global company has to be, well, financially bilingual. They've got to navigate two completely different sets of roles, sometimes inside the same company, all to tell one clear, trustworthy financial story to the entire world. Okay, so it's huge, it's complex, it's a multilingual exam. We get it. It's a monster. But thousands of people do pass it every single year. So how in the world do they pull it off? Let's check out some strategies from people who've been in the trenches. This is advice pulled straight from successful candidates on Reddit, and it shows that this is all about discipline and smart strategy. They say you should drill random sets of multiple choice questions to get used to the variety. They budget their time like a drill sergeant, 45 minutes for a set of questions, and that's it. And crucially, they learn when to cut their losses and not get totally stuck on the super complex simulations, which can be huge time wasters. This is definitely not a test you can cram for. This timeline here, it's inspired by a Reddit post from someone who passed all 4 sections in only 7 months. And it just shows you the pure dedication it takes. We're talking about a months-long gauntlet of studying, practicing, and reviewing every single day. Conquering Mount FAR is a marathon, for sure, not a sprint. So why? Why go through all of this pain? Because passing FAR is about so much more than getting 3 fancy letters after your name. It's about becoming fluent in the fundamental language that our entire global economy is built on. And the financial stakes are just staggering. In the US alone, investors have trillions of dollars invested in companies overseas. All that money flows across borders because of trust. And that trust is built on everyone sharing an understanding of financial information. Without accountants who can translate and verify these stories, that trust just disappears. So here's the bottom line. FAR isn't just some academic hoop you have to jump through. It's the tough, demanding, and necessarily difficult process that makes sure accountants are qualified to be the gatekeepers of global trust and commerce. It makes sure that the language of business, no matter which dialect you're speaking, is spoken with integrity. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. For years, people have talked about merging GAAP and IFRS into one standard. But in a world as connected and complex as ours, will we ever really get to a single universal language for business? Or is being financially bilingual just the new standard from now on?